name is Dr. Amber Trice, and I graduated from Northwestern Health Sciences University in 2007, and I am the owner of Natural Living Chiropractic in Savage. Why did I become a chiropractor? I believe that the body had a way of healing itself with a little facilitation. And so initially, I wasn't sure what type of doctor I wanted to become. I knew that I wanted to help people in a more natural way. And when I learned about chiropractic, that it was just over for me. I knew exactly where my calling had been. You sleep better, you move better, you have less pain, stress reduction, your immune system has been improved. Chiropractic can help and be beneficial in so many different areas. The things I do here at Natural Living Chiropractic, along with the adjustments, I add in various therapies. Therapies help with the adjustments because the adjustments help with the alignment of the spine and the therapies help with the muscle rehabilitation. So here in my office, my entire job is based off of bringing nerve supply and blood supply to an affected area to allow for more rehabilitation. So the way that that is accomplished here in the office is by therapy and or the adjustments. So cupping therapy is about as old of a therapy as you can imagine. It's been around for centuries. Most people will equate it with Michael Phelps being seen in the Olympics where he had those spots on his back, and that is cupping. So in an area where there's a lot of tightness and you need to bring more blood supply to allow that muscle to function a little more properly, you would use cupping. Have cups, and you use this tool right here to suction out the oxygen in the cups. Once you suction that out, now it is just left on the skin, right? So you will leave this on the skin for about 10 or 15 minutes, and that's where you're going to get those big red circles. And what that is doing is it's just bringing blood supply to that area. So one thing that you need to be aware of is that usually when there's an area of injury or chronically tight muscles, that spot doesn't get enough oxygen and nutrients. It doesn't get enough blood supply to that area. And that's where that pain kind of starts coming in. It's not being fed the proper nutrients to do its proper job. So cupping is a great form of therapy to allow for more blood supply into that area. Graston is one of my most favorite techniques to use. It is an area that I feel passionate about. It's an area that I am specialized in, and I am a certified Graston Technique specialist. So what I love about Graston is it actually uses a variety of stainless steel instruments. Depending on the specific part of the body that you're working on, you get to choose a different instrument. What I love about the instruments is that they have a little bit of a beveled edge, and that beveled edge right there is designed to break down scar tissue and muscle adhesions. So Graston can be used in any area of the body. I've done it behind the ear, I've done it on hands, feet, ankles, hips, low back, bicep. Basically anywhere in the body that there is damage, then Graston can be used. So what Graston does is it actually uses those beveled edges, like I said before, and it breaks down the scar tissue. Now, one of the things that you need to know about Graston is that it can leave some marks that look like bruising, and it can be a little tender within like 24 to 48 hours. Generally, the tenderness goes away and it leaves you a feeling of improved circulation and better range of motion in that area. All right, so EMS, otherwise known as electric muscle stim, simply looks like this. So it's connected to the machine, and you can use 2 pads alone, or you can use 4 pads. So for example, the 4 pads would go on a person, such as this, in a specific pattern. Once this is applied to a person, you then turn the machine on until you feel a tiny little bit of a buzzing feeling. Once you get that buzzing feeling, then you turn it up to the point where it's not uncomfortable, but it does create a little bit of electricity through that muscle. Eventually you'll get to the point where the muscle fatigues, and that is what we're going for. Generally speaking, muscles will contract and relax in a very specific pattern, and eventually, if you keep doing something repetitively, you'll get muscle fatigue. So what electric stim does, when someone comes in with really tight traps because they've been working all day or tight forearms, you'll place the pads on that affected area, and then you'll sit there and you'll actually contract and relax the muscle until it gets to a point of fatigue. And then it's just exhausted and it doesn't want to fire anymore. And when that happens, then the muscles in that area are allowed to relax. So what you need to know about ultrasound, it is not the ultrasound that looks in the body like you're looking for a gender of a baby, all right? There is a difference between therapeutic ultrasound and diagnostic ultrasound. This right here, my friends, is therapeutic ultrasound. Say you're going dancing and you get to this dance and nobody is on the dance floor. It's kind of cold because it's December and no one is moving, right? Well, a few hours later, the music becomes a little bit better, more and more people head out to the dance floor. And before you know it, you're bumping into people and it's creating a lot of heat and a lot of friction. And you leave there feeling just hot because you've been dancing all night long, right? What ultrasound does is it takes cells that are just sitting there, they're stagnant because the muscles are just tight and damaged, and it starts bouncing them. It creates heat waves and sound waves, and the cells start creating friction and bumping into each other, much like you would on a dance floor. And with that, it creates heat in that area. Once you start creating heat into that area, it really means that there's oxygen and nutrients getting to that area via blood supply. Blood supply is kind of like the mecca of all things healing. It brings oxygen and nutrients to an area to allow for better healing. And that's basically what ultrasound does in the form of heat. This is an ear candle. So an ear candle is great for getting wax out of the ear. It helps with swimmer's ear. It helps with people that are musicians that need to get a very specific mold fit to their ear. Sometimes they need to make sure that they have no debris in their ear whatsoever to get a more fitted mold. It's pretty specific. And then another thing is just overall health and wellness of the ear. Along with every once in a while, you can throw in some ear infections. And how it's used, that's the important part. Like, how does ear candling work? So you have a person lying on their side, and you literally stick this end into their ear. Now, you don't want to jam it into the ear because you have to be really careful about the ear canal. But you put it into the ear so it is a little bit, it's stationary. You do light this end on fire. So if you have any nerves about fire or questions about that, that definitely needs to be talked about ahead of time so you can go over the process a little bit more in depth. As it starts burning down, the heat created actually creates a suction. So it suctions up the debris and the wax from the ear. So eventually, as this kind of goes down and down a little bit further, you'll extinguish the candle, and inside this whole bottom edge of this candle will be filled with wax. Kinesio tape is used for a whole host of injuries in the body. So what it's most used for is to ask muscles to either start firing or ask muscles to stop firing. Because if you think about it, those are usually the only reasons why muscles are aching or injured, is because there was some other miscommunication in that muscle group. So what Kinesio tape does when applied to the body, it sends messages to the brain. And what it does is it reminds the brain that there's proprioceptive input in a specific area. Now what that means is the brain is just simply aware that it needs to send more blood supply to an area, ultimately resulting in your healing process. So Kinesio tape has a little bit of a stretch factor, and depending on the way that you put it on, determines what it was used for. So oftentimes, you can kind of stretch it in any direction. If you want to go ahead and look at it this way, you can stretch it this way just slightly, and also this way it's a little bit more pliable. One thing you might want to be wary of is the way that you take it off. It's not necessarily just a band-aid. Now, you're not going to have any repercussions if you rip it off. It's just there are nicer ways than to just rip it off. So laser is another form of therapy, often not used in your standard treatments, but it's quite effective at helping the body turn over the cell production. So usually when there's damaged cells, they still have to live out their cell life. But what laser does is it increases the ATP production of the cell, and it kind of forces the cell to turn over and create new cells faster. So what that means for your healing is that it actually shortens the injury time and starts working on the healing time a whole lot faster. Laser is used in short increments of time, and you have to be careful with laser because it can affect the vision. It's not meant to look at in direct eyesight, things like that. So oftentimes people will have you look away, maybe wear some glasses so that the laser does not hit the eyes. But what it does look like is that it just simply creates a little more heat in the area of injury. And it's a little bit more specific and it's focused because rather than dealing with a larger area, we just put it in a very small area of the body. Injury rehabilitation and mobility oftentimes can go hand in hand. Mobility is needed for a body part to go through a range of motion efficiently and effectively without pain. All right, so that is what mobility is. And mobility, as we get older, I feel decreases. And so here at Natural Living Chiropractic, we work on mobility to increase the overall health and wellness of the body. If your body moves better, you work better, you have less injury, you just generally feel better. Mobility comes in many forms. Overall, it's our body's ability to move through its full range of motion without pain. Sometimes there is pain and it's dysfunctional mobility. So when someone comes into the office and we have determined that there is dysfunctional mobility, we need to move ahead with treatment right away and get on board with creating more mobility. Once we've created more mobility in the body, then we have earned the right to start adding load to the movement patterns. Once we've created more mobility, we've now hopefully decreased the person's chances of getting hurt. So, some of the ways in which we can create mobility in the body by the use of rocker boards. Sometimes we use bands in various parts of the body, whether around the ankles or around the knees, to create some mobility in different areas. Foam rollers are often used here at Natural Living Chiropractic, along with lacrosse balls. So depending on the body part and the movement pattern of that specific body part determines what we're going to use for therapy and mobility. So when asked about rehabilitation for different muscle groups, it not only takes the form of using different therapies within the office to help facilitate the healing, but now we've broken down dysfunctional movement patterns. We've regained mobility, but now we have to work on rehabilitating the muscle groups so that it fires in the pattern that we need it to. So depending on the area of the body, much like anything else, we need to devise a specific protocol and a plan tailored to that part of the body. And how that works is A, you first diagnose the problem, then you create the mobility, and then the rehabilitation part comes in the form of creating stability and or load, right? So the various aspects of stability and the various aspects of rehabilitation take many forms depending on the body part. Some of the things that we use here are boards, as far as this can be used for a stability board. We have this fun little gadget here that helps with motor control. It also helps facilitate different muscle groups. This can be incorporated into other therapies, exercise therapy. It's also incorporated into Graston Therapy for shoulder issues and wrist and forearm issues. The rocker board has also been one of my favorite when working with ankle stability and ankle mobility. And so rocker boards just overall in general help with ankles. One of the questions I often get asked is, can you adjust in various settings or different ways? I know for a lot of people, the act of turning their head and creating that loud popping noise creates some hesitation for them. And I always like to let people know that there is a different way to adjust. So if you are a person who does not like to have their head rotated, maybe you've been in a car accident and it hurts to move your head that way, we can use something called an activator. So an activator is actually used with a patient lying down. So they don't even have to move in any other direction except to simply get on the table. I often use this with infants. I use it sometimes with pregnant moms, and I use it oftentimes with the elderly patients. So this is one technique in which we can adjust you without a lot of those big movements that you've probably watched in some YouTube videos. For your low back, we can have something called a drop piece or a drop table. And so this portion of the table pops up, and it allows for the chiropractor to press down and create movement in the low back area without having to put you in that side position, because sometimes people have tight hip flexors, their low back hurts so bad, they can't get into those positions. So for those of you who need a variety or need a different pace of adjusting rather than what you've probably watched or heard, there are different types of adjusting. You just need to find a practitioner that practices those. So ask questions and find someone that works for you. If you have any further questions or you would like to get a hold of me, feel free to reach out via text or phone call at 952-239-4457. If you would prefer to schedule an appointment, simply go to Schedulicity and look for Natural Living Chiropractic. You should be able to find the business page and book your own appointment online. If you prefer email, it is ambertrice@gmail.com.